Cap it had to make my mama happy. I got Louis Gucci, now they look at me funny. They say, Soldier, where you get out of this money? Them niggas hate it cause I'm hot as the sun. Soldier strapped with the automatic gun.
What's going on YouTube? It's been a while since I've been face to face on camera, but decided to talk about something that's kind of been on my mind for the last couple of weeks, and it is the Cowboy Bebop live adaptation. I haven't really talked about it on YouTube. I've kind of talked about it in private groups and Discord, and Twitter, and stuff like that. At first, obviously, like everyone else, super excited for it, right? It's Cowboy Bebop. We haven't gotten anything Cowboy Bebop related since, I believe, 2002 with the movie. It's been some years, right? And it still holds up to this day. Definitely one of my top 5 animes of all time. But the live action has me concerned. And the reason for that is because of some of the changes that are being made to it. Now, I'm not saying change isn't good, and there's some things that can be done to improve the source material or help add on to the source material. For example, The Witcher, right? The Witcher does follow closely to the books, but they add and change some things to make it a little bit easier to watch, or for people who aren't necessarily into the books, able to grasp what's going on and completely understand. For example, the way that Geralt talks in the book versus how he talks in the video games is completely different. However, more people are obviously familiar with The Witcher 3 and The Witcher 2 and how he talks, so they kind of incorporate that speech pattern into the Netflix series to kind of give a little bit more familiarity to people who are familiar with The Witcher but don't know The Witcher, if that makes sense. Things like that. Costume changes, things like that as well. Copyright. Some changes are just necessary and some things are done to better enhance the source material. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, along with a few other things. There are some changes that they're making to the Cowboy Bebop live action that concern me, and it's not the way that you think due to some of this. I'll try to explain as we go around each topic. I'll have each topic linked in the description down below if you want to read it and check it out yourself, and if you want to open up a discussion, I'm more for it. Just when you do, please be respectful, obviously, you know, don't be a troll and stuff like that. But I'm going to talk about some of my concerns about the Cowboy Bebop live adaptation. I'm still going to watch it. You're probably going to see the uploads here on YouTube. Definitely going to see it on Patreon if you want to check it out there. But let's go ahead and talk about this and just kind of be constructive about this, right? Let's try and be constructive about some of the changes that Netflix has decided to make. So one of the biggest changes that Netflix is making is that it's supposed to be an expansion to the series and not a one-to-one to the anime. I could be okay with this depending on what they mean by an expansion to the anime, and I think this quote here kind of serves as what they're trying to do. I believe we've done a really nice job of not violating the canon in any direction, but merely offering some extra glimpses into the world that is already created. He continued noting that he considers that the series be an expansion to the canon, which will add things to the Cowboy Bebop mythos. Now, this can be good depending on what you decide to expand, and I think their main focus is expanding upon the characters of Spike and Faye. Those characters get named a lot whenever they're talking about the live-action series. And I think what's going to happen is there's going to be certain episodes within the show, the original 26 episodes. There's certain episodes that are obviously fan favorites, like episode 5. And other episodes to where they're really going to try and expand those episodes to kind of give a little bit more backstory to them, which I'm okay with, right? I'm always happy to get a little bit more information. I just hope they don't change those stories, right? And that's kind of the biggest fear that I have when they mention that there's going to be an expansion or it's not going to follow one-to-one, is that they're going to do drastic changes to some of the characters or some of the storytelling or some of the origin stories, which I believe they're going to do this for one character, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But as long as it's just an expansion and it's more of giving background to certain characters and certain stories, I'm okay with it, right? I would prefer to have either like a prequel to the original 26 episodes, right? Kind of give us a little bit more story that's focused on the Syndicate, the story between Vicious, Julia, and Spike, you know, before the whole thing happened. Or maybe give us what happens at the end, right? I know the ending is super open-ended and it's supposed to be like that, but maybe like what happens to everyone else after, you know, the final episode. Things like that is something I would rather see than what's going on right now. But we got what we got, and so it's best to kind of look at this kind of objectively, but objectively caution. So that's one of the main things that I'm concerned about. And this ties into another concern, is that the actual creator, I apologize if I pronounced his name wrong, Shinichiro Watanabe, is more of an advisor and not necessarily part of the writing process of the expanded episodes, right? So that's kind of concerning. I mean, it's good that they have him as an advisor, but even he says that I have no choice but to pray and hope that it will turn out good, because even he says that, and I'll see if I can find the quote here. He specifies that that I've read the initial concept and provided my opinions, but I'm not sure if they'll be reflected in the final product. So yeah, like the showrunner or the original author of the show, creator of the show, is more of an advisor than necessarily part of the process, which has its own concerns as well. But like I said, it just depends on how Netflix and the writer decide to use the source material, right? Because that's what it really depends on. What are you doing with the source material? We already know it's not going to be on one-to-one adaptation. So what is your plans to expand the series without changing the series? And that concerns me because they are in fact changing certain things that don't make sense to me, and I feel like it's just changes for the sake of making changes, and it breaks down some of the story and mythos that is part of Cowboy Bebop, and we'll go ahead and explain some of that right now. So one of the changes that baffles my mind, and this was actually reported back last year and I just completely missed it, is that they're changing Gren from a male to a non-binary character. And I just want to get this off the top of the head right now before I just want to nip this in the butt. I personally don't care if you're non-binary, trans, whatever. That's not the conversation piece here. This type of change is unnecessary because it doesn't fit the character. And what I mean by that is, for those who remember who Gren is, right? Gren participated in the war with Vicious, and because of certain events that happened, I won't do spoilers, but certain events happened, and he was in prison and forced to take drugs because of his, his behavior, right? Because of his psychological behavior. He was very violent and had very bad tempers, to the fact that they put him in prison and they forced him experimental drugs. Well, the experimental drugs worked, but however, what happened was that because of the drugs he was taking, he developed breast, right? He ended up developing breast. And it wasn't the change that he has, that because he has breast, it wasn't because that he wanted to be trans, right? Like, it wasn't his choice, right? This was something that was forced upon him because of the experimental drugs and because of the actions that happened to him during the war. And I feel like you're discrediting both non-binary people and this character by just forcing a change like this. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Unless you plan on completely changing Gren's story, which if that's the case, I guess this works. But you're completely changing the story. I don't know if it's to fit a narrative. I don't know if it's just to make changes for the sake of changes. But something like this just doesn't make sense to me, I guess. I have to see the show and what they plan on doing. But if they give the character the same backstory, but still want the character to be labeled as non-binary, that just doesn't make sense, and I feel like that's a little bit of pandering. And I don't know. I feel like if you're gonna do a non-binary character, even though it still wouldn't make sense, Edward would make more sense, or Ed would make more sense, which Ed's not even in the show as far as I know, which is another red flag, but we'll talk about that another day. And a lot of people who are defending this choice are kind of quoting this line here, "I am both, but I am neither," saying like, oh, well, this is just a confirmation that this person is non-binary. That's not the case. If you remember the episode, you remember the character, this quote is more along the lines of he doesn't know who he is anymore because of what's happened, because of the drugs, because of all the things that's happened in his life, not because he doesn't know what gender he is, right? Because even in the show, he continues to verify himself, or continues to refer to himself as a male, right? As the original male pronouns. He continues to refer to himself as a male. The rest of the cast continue to talk to him as a male, right? And he doesn't correct anybody in the show. That's the information that they have on him, because he was in fact a male character that grew boobs because of the drugs that he was forced to take in prison, not because he had a choice to be non-binary. Now, if this was a choice within the anime, right? If this character, decided to become non-binary for reasons, that's one thing, right? Fine, whatever. But this is just more like a change just for the sake of making a change, and it doesn't really make sense to me. And so to kind of go off that with more gender swap things, they are changing the Syndicate. I don't know why they're changing the Syndicate, but the Syndicate is no longer titled the Red Dragons. It's now the White Tigers. Don't know why. And they've changed the head of the Red Dragon from male to female. Again, a change that doesn't really make sense. This sounds like this is just Netflix pandering just to pander. And, we've seen this before in other shows and things like that. Yeah. So Mao has been changed from male to female, and this was a very important character in the show too, right? We got few scenes from him, but the scenes that we got was very important, right? And I guess they feel like she could do a better job, and I guess because their reasoning is that perhaps because of her blue collar background, Mao is more cunning, adept, crafty, and deadly than her counterparts. I don't know. Like I said, it's weird. It's a weird change that doesn't make sense to me. right? Again, it just feels like it's another change for the sake of change. Same thing with this character Shin, right? For those who don't know, there's two characters, Shin and then Lin, right? Brothers that both work in the organization or in the syndicate. Lin being the one that decides to protect Vicious and stay with Vicious. Shin being the one that's more on Spike's side towards the end. What's happening, and again, I'm not gonna try and spoil too much, but you know, both brothers pick a side basically towards the end of the show. The fact that they changed this character to a female, again, it doesn't make sense to me, and I hope this isn't a change to bring about some type of romantic conflict between Shin and Spike. Like, because Shin in the show has the utmost respect for Spike, right? He thought that Spike would one day come back and take over the syndicate. So it's like a respect thing that he has for that he has for Spike. The way that he carries himself, the way that he acts. So I would hate for that respect to be turned into some like weird love triangle thing or something like that, or some one-sided love. I don't think that's going to make any of the characters stronger. In fact, I think that's going to be more detriment to both the characters and the writing. Now, again, that's just speculation on my part based on why the fact that you would change this type of character to a female, someone that is close to Spike in some regard, and has the utmost respect for Spike, right? This change doesn't really make sense to me. And then another change, which this one is funny just because the internet's the internet and the internet's going to do what they do best. So whenever the original this poster came out, right, or this snippet of the series came out, what the characters look like, right, the costumes don't look bad. I mean, Spike looks good, Jet looks good. There's a few things I would change with Faye. I think I would just mainly change the color of the shorts to match like the top, make it yellow. It doesn't even really have to be that much shorter, right? Maybe just like half an inch like higher or something like that, and maybe the fishnets be actual fishnets instead of like boots, these boots things, right? Like, there's certain things about the costume that whatever, it's a costume, right? It's a Netflix change. They always make changes like this. It doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look great, and people were kind of like pointing that out. I was like, this character really doesn't look like Faye. Even the haircut is wrong, right? You just put on a purple, you know, wig on this character. Doesn't really represent the character, but the other two really do represent the characters, right? You can take a look and say, oh, that's Jet. Oh, that's Spike. I think honestly, you know, John Cho actually pulls this look off really well, to be honest. But it just doesn't fit. This doesn't really fit the character that much, again, which is fine. But when people were voicing their opinion over on Netflix, right, and this is over to Netflix, not the actress herself, right? They were voicing over the Netflix and outfit designer saying, why did you make these drastic changes to the character? It doesn't really make sense. She decided to chime in and say that, oh, well, I'm sorry, like, this was like really some sarcastic, like, attacking the fans type thing. She was basically saying like, oh, well, we tried to get a 6'1" double D breasted women to play the role, but they got little old me. Which, first of all, Faye is definitely shorter than these two characters, right? Or at least she's the same height as Spike, right? No one's saying that she need to be 6'1" double Ds or anything like that, right? It's an annoyance that the way that she reacted to the criticism that wasn't even really directed towards her. It was directed towards the outfit, right? And she decided to attach herself onto it, which the internet does what the internet does best, is that they actually brought up a lot of her past roles, because she noted that, oh, well, I can't wear tissue paper, reflecting off of Faye's original design. I can't wear tissue paper and do the moves that, you know, you expect me to do. But in all of her previous movies, she actually does a lot of like complicated, like, you know, flips and stuff like that in less clothing. And it's like, hold on a minute, you're doing this in these other movies, what's going on, right? So a lot of the backlash from that and her original response to it was like, basically she did a fuck around and find out moment with the internet, right? They pretty much drug her through the mud because she decided to interject herself in somewhere where she really didn't even need to, right? People weren't even mad at her, right? They knew that it wasn't necessarily her choice in the costume all the way. It was more of a Netflix thing, but she decided to interject herself. And then both her and Netflix said that they wanted a real woman to play the part, which, again, internet being what the internet does, a bunch of cosplayers just brought up pictures of them dressing the part. Some would even like the same length of the shorts that she's wearing, but like actually looking like the costume and stuff like that. It's it's a lot of basically them challenging the internet and the internet doing what the internet does best. So that doesn't really necessarily concern me as much. Like I said, I don't hate the costume. It's whatever to me, right? As long as she can play the part. Yes, the costume and the sexualization of the character was part of the character being a female fatale, right? One of her things was that she would lure stupid men to take their money and to do what she says. That was kind of what she did too, right? But I don't know. This doesn't really bother me as much as everything else, because this doesn't really have anything to really do with the story. This is just like a costume change or whatever. This is just a outfit decision that I personally don't care two shits about. But everything else here that I mentioned before, with the gender swaps, the expansion of the story, this is the stuff that I'm concerned about. And then we have the trailer, right? Like I said, I'm not going to play the trailer for copyright reasons, right? I'm not going to play the entire trailer. There's just certain things that have me concerned in this trailer, right? Let's by the way, I didn't really like this trailer. I think some things are just better left animated. Like this kick here. That just looks bad. But we see other characters from the show make appearances, right? Like we see some characters from episodes, fan favorite episodes most likely, right? That are going to be in the show, right? I think the chemistry between these two are going to be pretty good, honestly. I think these two are going to really steal the show, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think they're going to really bring their A game. But like this fall here, that looks bad. We obviously know who that is, right? It's like some of this just looks bad. And then you see characters like from the first episode, right? The first episode, I think this is from episode 5, maybe? Not 5, I'm sorry, episode 3 or 4. But we see characters from the first episode. I'll hide my face here to give you a little bit of a better look, right? So we see characters, right? This is from the first episode with the red eye incident, where she's like basically smuggling the red eye using her pregnancy as the thing, and he's pretty much dealing it, but he's also addicted. So are they going to expand upon these two characters? And if so, how are you going to expand upon these two characters? They were sort of minor characters. So it's really only more so an introduction to Spike and how he handles things, more so than, characters about them, right? It's not really about them. And then you have, this guy here, which I believe this isn't really his first face. I believe this is like his billionth face, because this guy's like known for like changing his face to avoid the police and bounty hunters. So this is just another surgical option. But I'm curious to see how they're gonna expand upon this. Or they're gonna make this like his original look, because part of his character, which is the name escapes me at the time, but part of his character is that he does change faces frequently, and then he kills the doctors that did the face changes because he doesn't want people to question them, right? So I don't know if they're gonna bring that element into the series, but they're definitely bringing him into the show, right? And then this this looks bad. I'm sorry. Like, I'm trying not to be super negative, but Vicious looks bad. This is supposed to be Vicious. This is Vicious. This character looks bad, right? And nothing against the actor, right? I don't even know who the actor is, to be honest, but this character looks bad. He looks rough, right? He looks bad. I don't know if it's just because of the costume. Like, the way he's walking just, it bothers me, right? Like, maybe he'll do a fantastic job on the part, right? And then we got, of course, like Julia. And then I believe they actually added the scene. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, so they added the scene from episode 5, right? And if you've seen the show, you know what this is, right? You know what episode this is, right? They've added that to the series, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna expand upon every episode that deals with interactions between Spike and Vicious. I feel like they're gonna expand upon those. But anyway, that's my probably 15 plus minutes worth of rambling. I don't really make videos this long, but I wanted to get some of this stuff off of my chest and kind of explain, cautiously looking forward to the show, right? I do want to see what they do with this. I just hope it's not another Death Note incident, because, oh man, Death Note. I will say that it's definitely going to be worth watching to see what it does, whether it's good or bad. I don't believe in supporting something just to support something. I think you should support something if you truly believe it's going to be good. So I do have some hopes for it. However, those are just some of my criticisms, some of my concerns of what's going on with the overall direction that the show is taking. We'll find out in 2 months, right? We'll find out in 2 months how exactly this is going to fare. And, we'll just have to take it from there, right? We'll see what happens. If you are looking for some good recommendations of live adaptations that are really done, check out the Samurai X OVA movies, right? I believe there's 4 of them in total. Definitely go check out those movies. Those are really good movies. Definitely check that out. And don't watch Death Note. Don't watch the Death Note live adaptation. At least not the Netflix one. Don't watch that one. Watch the ones that was made in Japan. Don't watch that. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. As always, if you like the video, subscribe, bell notification icon, and I will catch you guys next time. Take care.